Well, good evening, friends. Let us be still for a moment, and in that silence feel the presence, the infinite invisible. Closer than breath, nearer than hands and feet. What if the most radical thing Joel S. Goldsmith ever shared wasn't a doctrine at all, but a silence so living it dissolves fear, rivalry, and even the need for intermediaries? Tonight we open Joel Goldsmith's hidden message that churches tried to impersonalize, not to argue with any church, but to remember the one power that no institution can contain and no ritual can monopolize. Be still and know the Christ is an inner unfolding, not a system to manage. If this awakening speaks to you, like the video, comment "Ulanlin" to affirm oneness and subscribe so this light finds those who are ready. 'Cause stay with me, because in a moment I'll share the quiet practice Joel entrusted to his students, the simple shift that turns prayer from asking into realization. Are you willing to test it with me for just 10 minutes tonight? First, we root ourselves in the first key, one power, the infinite invisible as the only cause. Not a creed to be recited, but a living awareness that shifts the axis of your life. When you touch that presence, even lightly, the compulsion to fight, manipulate, or fear begins to loosen. In the world of appearances, it looks as though many powers contend. Disease opposes health, debt opposes supply, hostility opposes safety. Joel's hidden insistence was quietly revolutionary. There are not two powers. Effect is never a cause. What we fear is but a mask worn by the mind's projection, a shadow cast by forgetting source. Think of electricity and the lamp. The bulb may flicker, the shade may be torn, but the light is not in the bulb. The current is invisible, constant, impartial. In spiritual terms, the infinite invisible is that current. Persons, conditions, organs, and bank accounts are the shades and bulbs through which light appears. Therefore, we do not wage war with shadows. We do not deify them when they look pleasant, nor demonize them when they look threatening. We look past the form to the causative presence, and in that looking, the sting of fear is withdrawn, and harmony has room to show itself. This is not denial, it is de-powering. We acknowledge the report, the sensation, the headline, and then gently ask within, is there another power here besides God? If not, what authority does this appearance have to govern my thought, my peace, or my conduct? Practically, it becomes a rhythm. Pause, be still, withdraw the labels good and evil as powers, recognize one presence, one life, one law. Let the mind grow quiet until it feels the inward yes. Often nothing outward changes at that second, yet a subtle release occurs, the clutching stops, the atmosphere warms. Then actions can be taken, doctor visits, phone calls, reconciliations, without superstition, without panic. You carry the awareness that causes within, and effects line up accordingly. Supply is not a person's favor, it is the activity of your consciousness. Safety is not a locked door, it is the radiance of realized oneness. When a person or condition seems to threaten, bless it by removing from it the burden of being a power. Say within, you are not the source of my good or the author of my harm. The one animates all, and I rest in that. In such recognition, relationships untangle, negotiations soften, timing improves. One presence means one identity. The same life that beats your heart lives the so-called other. As you stand there, inwardly still, you sense a unifying field of love moving of itself. This is spiritual causation, not manipulating outcomes, but witnessing the self-revealing nature of reality. To live from one power is to abide as a transparency for the infinite invisible. Anxiety yields to trust, compulsion to guidance, effort to grace. The result is not passivity but inspired responsiveness, a life conducted by the quiet authority of what is. You discover that everything necessary is already present in germ within consciousness, waiting to be recognized rather than imported from outside. As recognition deepens, coincidences multiply, ideas come on time, resistance loses its teeth. The one power does the work, and you become its willing witness, with gratitude and quiet amazement each day. As you carry this poise into calls, meals, and meetings, the very nature of prayer begins to change. What once was petition an attempt to persuade an outside power, becomes realization, a silent beholding of what already is. You are not trying to move God, you are consenting to be moved by God. Silence becomes the sanctuary where this shift happens naturally. In that silence, we lay down requests and take up recognition. Before you call, I will answer is not poetry, it is the description of a universe already whole. Petition assumes lack and distance. Realization proceeds from sufficiency and nearness. So we enter the hush not with lists, but with willingness. We let the mind unclench, the breath soften, and we attend like a listener at the door of a beloved friend. Thoughts will parade. Let them. Silence is not thoughtlessness, it is non-attachment to thought. Imagine yourself a sky, thoughts are birds passing through. Do not swat at them, let them arc and fade. Return to the felt sense of presence, the subtle aliveness behind the chest, the spaciousness around the head, the I that simply is. A brief verse may prime the heart, then even the verse is set down so the inner teacher can speak for itself. When a problem presses, resist the itch to fix it in the realm of effects. Withdraw into the interior altar and acknowledge there is one life here, one law, one presence. Nothing else has authority. Rest there long enough to feel the atmosphere change, a softening, a quiet certainty not grounded in evidence. This is realization beginning to dawn. Out of that stillness, the right step often presents itself, a call, a rest, a no, a yes. You act from peace instead of toward peace. This kind of prayer requires practice in small moments. Take brief sanctuaries, 30 seconds at the sink, 2 minutes before a meeting, a quiet breath at a red light. Each pause is an act of fidelity to reality. Over time, the pauses join into an undercurrent. You discover that silence continues even while you speak and work, like a river under a boat. You will notice the language of prayer simplifying. Less, please make, more, thy will is, and eventually simple awareness without words. Gratitude becomes the natural tone, not as courtesy, but because the heart recognizes sufficiency before form displays it. Even when forms are scarce or painful, the inner assurance does not flicker, and that assurance gently reorganizes circumstances in ways the planning mind could not have arranged. Importantly, silence as prayer is not passivity. It is a different causation that works. Proceed from the Father within, not from personal will. You discover a paradox when you cease telling God what to do. Guidance becomes clear when you stop clutching outcomes. Outcomes improve when you relinquish control. Inspired order appears. This does not make you reckless. It makes you responsive. You do the next right thing without strain. If fear surges, do not perform verbal acrobatics to suppress it. Turn again to the presence. Name the fear softly, then remove its credential. It is not a power. Let the silence bathe it. Often, the very energy of fear is transmuted into clarity and courage, like fog lifting to reveal a road you could not see. Keep the prayer field clean by refraining from rehearsing the problem to yourself and others. Speak truth more than trouble. Hold your tongue when speech would harden appearances. Let the inner hush carry the burden until the outward step is obvious and simple, and as you act, keep watch on the mind's oldest habit, the reflex of two powers. The shift now is to behold that what seems to oppose you has no selfhood, no mandate, no law. Error, whether named disease, lack, conflict, or sin, is not a person, not a condition with causative force. It is an impersonal suggestion, a universal hypnotism, the carnal mind, parading as reality without substance. We do not wrestle it, we unmask it by recognizing one presence, one power. Impersonalizing error breaks the cycle of blame and fear. When someone lashes out, pause and refuse to glue that conduct to their identity. Inwardly see through the mask. This is not Mary, this is a suggestion of separation. I behold the Christ where Mary appears. When the body reports pain, do not call the organ a power. Acknowledge this sensation has no authority to define life. God life is the only life here. When finances look tight, do not enthrone the economy or a client as your source. Recognize supply is the activity of consciousness, not the mood of markets. This is not denial, nor is it sentimental excusing. It is a change of jurisdiction. You may still see the doctor, apologize, revise a budget, or set a boundary, but you refuse to act as if a second power were dictating terms. Actions taken from this poise are clean, intelligent, and free of panic. The heat is out of them because you are not bargaining with a rival god. Even good appearances must be kept in their place. A favorable report, a raise, a compliment. Receive them with gratitude, but do not deify them as cause. If you grant them causative status, their absence will terrify you tomorrow. Anchor cause where it belongs in the infinite invisible. Then good flows through 1,000 forms without binding you to any single one. Practical steps help stabilize this seeing. Name the appearance without dramatizing it. Then strip it of personhood, not a man, not a virus, not a balance sheet as power. Affirm quiet truth, not to force a result, but to rest in reality. One presence is here, nothing opposes it. Behold the person or organ in the light of Christ, innocent of self, powered action, responsive to the one mind. Wait for inner release before outward speech or movement. Let peace precede procedure. When condemnation tries to recruit you of yourself or another, remember, condemnation personalizes what is only a suggestion. Father, forgive them becomes practical theology. They know not what they do because they believe in two powers. Forgiveness is not the cancellation of accountability, it is the refusal to confer power on error. Accountability proceeds from love and clarity, not from fear's frenzy. With headlines and collective anxieties, take the same stance. World belief shouts many powers, contagion, chaos, scarcity. Enter the inner sanctuary and bear witness. There is no law to sustain a lie about God's universe. Refuse to lend your consent, speech, or imagination to the narrative of two powers. As you stay with the one, while your consciousness becomes a quiet non-consent that weakens the suggestion for yourself and, mysteriously, for others, you will begin to sense a tenderness in this practice. People cease being problems to fix. They appear as holy ones on whom suggestions sometimes settle. Your own patterns feel less shame-laden and more like old weather dissipating under sunlight. Courage grows because there is nothing to fight, only truth to recognize. And as the magnetism of appearances fades, room opens for grace to function as order, protection, timing, and the effortless flow of what is needed, including the recognition that supply is never outside, but the very action of realized consciousness continuing its quiet unfoldment, which is the heart of grace, not law. Law, in the spiritual sense, is the belief that effects are earned, traded, or engineered by correct human behavior or technique. Grace is the recognition that the source forever pours itself as life, supply, wisdom, and protection without bargaining or delay. Law calculates, grace gives. Law anxiously measures cause and effect. Grace is the cause and the effect as one movement. When you lean into grace, you stop auditioning for God and begin consenting to God's own activity as your being. Supply, then, is not a pile of things. It is the rhythm of consciousness revealing itself as ideas, timing, openings, companions, money when needed, and the right no when not needed. You do not attempt to magnetize stuff with thought power. You rest in the awareness of oneness, and forms appear as the natural clothing of that inner state. The branch does not strain to bear fruit, sap flows and fruit happens. So with realized consciousness, it does not petition orchards, it abides and fruitage arrives. This rescues you from the superstition of spiritual economics. If I affirm longer, tithe more, visualize harder, then I'll be blessed. Giving is holy when it is the overflow of realization, not a purchase of safety. Affirmations calm the mind when they lead to silence. They become bondage when used as leverage. Planning and labor keep you honest and available. Panic-driven hustle announces a temporary amnesia of source. Do the next intelligent thing, but do it from the Sabbath of inner sufficiency. Grace never violates wisdom. You still answer emails, keep agreements, pay bills, and learn skills. Yet the axis has shifted. You are not trying to wring good out of reluctant circumstances. You are letting good reveal the channel it already chose. What a client leaves, and another arrives without the old theater of self-justification. A bill comes due, and with it an idea you had set aside that now meets the need. Sometimes supply appears as subtraction, a project that falls away and frees hours for the work that truly matters. Grace is orchestration, not mere addition. Notice how fear subsides when cause returns to consciousness. If a paycheck is seen as cause, you become a hostage to its mood. If a market is cause, headlines steer your prayer. When consciousness is recognized as cause, you can welcome paychecks and markets without kneeling to them. You bless employers and customers by seeing them as avenues of the one, not as dispensers of your fate. Gratitude then is clean, because it is to God for God, what not flattery to secure more. Guard against outlining. The mind loves to specify what supply must look like, and in doing so it narrows the gate through which grace can move. Hold desires lightly, honor the essence of them, freedom, usefulness, beauty, then yield the forms. Often the forms that arrive carry more wisdom than the ones you drafted. You will recognize them by the peace that attends them and by the absence of inner bargaining. Circulation belongs to grace. As realization deepens, what you are given moves through you. Money, ideas, encouragement, none stagnate. You are not reckless. You are unblocked. You give where you are inwardly released to give, and you receive without debt to pride or shame. This flow itself is supply, and it clarifies the next step as you return again and again to the inner altar where presence announces itself without noise from that hush. Practice becomes very ordinary, a turning of the heart, many times a day, toward the living center. Not to get something, not to manage outcomes, but to cultivate availability. Think of it as keeping the inner ear attuned, so that guidance can be heard over the static of habit. The practice is simple, remember, rest, receive. Remember the one, rest from personal will, receive what rises without strain. On waking, before the mind grabs the day, lie still for a minute and acknowledge the presence here now. A single line may open the door, here I am, or a quiet awareness without words. Sit for 10 minutes if you can, read a brief paragraph of truth to lift the heart, then close the book and listen. Let phrases dissolve into silence. Do not aim for experience, consent to being. If thoughts rush, smile at them and return to the felt sense of aliveness in and around you. Thread the day with tiny sanctuaries. Before email, a breath and a glance inward. At red lights, soften the belly and remember one presence governs. Between tasks, let the shoulders fall and inquire, is there anything to do here but yield? 2 minutes is enough. Frequency matters more than duration. Each pause is a thread. Many threads weave a seamless garment of awareness you can wear in the marketplace. Listening is not passivity, it is poised receptivity. Often a gentle nudge appears. Call now, wait, apologize, send the note, say nothing. You follow without fanfare. If nothing arises, remain still a moment longer. Then proceed with the next simple duty, refusing to agitate for signs. The fruit of this way is a light touch. You work, but you are not worked by fear. You plan, but you are not driven by superstition. You adjust, but you are not swayed by every wind of appearance. Expect dry days and noisy sits. They do not signal failure. They train fidelity. The mind will audition worries and rehearse outcomes. Let it tire itself out while you rest as the witness. If you notice you have chased a thought for 5 minutes, that noticing is already a return. Drop the chase and settle again into quiet recognition here. God is. No second power, no rival presence, no urgent bargain to strike. In conversation, leave spaces. While the other speaks, listen both outwardly and inwardly. You may feel prompted to soften your tone, ask a truer question, or refrain from the clever retort. The space itself heals. In conflict, delay your first reaction long enough to remember innocence, their true identity and yours, and let your words emerge from that remembrance rather than from the reflex to win. Mark your environment with small reminders that call you home's a word on a card, a bell chime on your phone every few hours, a chair that means sanctuary. Keep a slender notebook, not for analysis but to catch brief rays, a line that rang, an intuition to test, a gratitude that arrived before form. Review these gently, not as laws to enforce, but as footprints of grace across an ordinary day. Before sleep, release the day into the presence and rest your attention in the heart center or on the breath, consenting to be carried through the night. If you wake at odd hours, treat the wakefulness as invitation rather than problem. Sit for a few minutes in the dark, acknowledging the one here, and let the hush spill back into sleep. Over time, you notice a subterranean steadiness, a companionship that does not come and go with moods, and even as you move quickly through tasks, you are moving from the quiet rather than toward it,